Okay, Felix, thank you so much for today.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. So today we have the pleasure of Felix Tan, head of the Finlab from UOB. Felix, tell me what you do. Tell me about Finlab.
Well, the Finlab started life off as a fintech accelerator. Sorry, I had to clear my throat a little bit. It was conceptualized and formed in November of 2015. I always like to say that I was brought on as a hired gun because they employed me into the Finlab as its first managing director to run a acceleration program for tech companies. Interestingly enough, I was the only fellow who checked all the boxes that they wanted. Looking back, it's always easy to connect the dots by getting here. So they wanted somebody who has worked in a bank before, so I did twice. They wanted somebody who has run a startup before, more than a couple times. They wanted somebody to have raised money from venture cap before, been there, done that. They want somebody who has invested his own money into tech companies. Been there, done that.
Yes, get in there.
and of course, last but not least, they also wanted somebody who has mentored startups before.
Yes.
So during my stint as a mentor at the then NTU Ventures, which is now called Intuitive. So been there, done that. So looking back, I heard they had quite a few people on the interview list.
I'm not surprised. Singapore is a talent pool. Yes.
Yep. So the only idiot that checked all the boxes was me. So at the end of the day, after the interview, I got the job. So at the start, we really didn't know what we're doing. Okay.
Yes.
We have a playbook. So it was adapted from all the other accelerators around the world. Of course, we had to give it a slightly local spin to that. And we just started off like that. And after running it for 2 years, we were quite happy. We have a slate of 13 companies in our portfolio. And that was when, we ran our first acceleration cycle in 2016. And then again in 2017. At that point in time, we were really starting to get some traction because people actually recognized the name, the Finlab.
Yes.
Yeah, we came in, we were pretty much the new kid on the block. At that point in time, nobody knew who we were. But after 1 year of brand building and stuff like that, thanks in no small part, to my two shareholders, obviously UOB and SG Innovate at that point in time, we got on the map. And in 2017, when we were running our second cycle, kind of looked around and said, geez, just about every other corporate who's worth their name and salt, right, is starting one.
Yes.
Right, so it's okay, so this thing is very fast becoming red ocean. I really don't like the idea of, competing for applications from tech companies who are there, who's going to start asking me, so Felix, what am I getting from you guys if I join you, vis-a-vis the other fellas. So I never quite liked to do that. So started to look at potential new markets that is basically underserved. And one of the things that struck me at that point in time was that, hey, look, we are creating supply. And I think in large part, Singapore is really good at creating supply.
Supply.
Right. We suck at doing demand. So we were actually doing the supply side because all these tech companies in our portfolio, they'll need somebody to use or buy their technology.
Yes.
Right. So we need that kind of thinking. Okay. So where's the demand? Okay. And one of the things that struck me then was the Singapore government has been pushing SMEs. Yeah. To adopt technology. Now, while the stuff that I was doing was strictly fintech, and we were basically the companies in our portfolio were largely B2B, so they serve financial institutions. But some of the stuff that some of them do could potentially be applicable to SMEs.
Absolutely.
So we started looking in that direction with the mindset that says that look, I'm not just looking for SMEs who can use the solutions from my portfolio companies, but I want to include a larger universe of tech solutions that SMEs can use. But before I do that, I need to understand what their pain points are.
Yes.
So from the government side, obviously the government has been doing a lot. They've been pushing and giving a lot of money for SMEs to adopt digital technologies. But after so many years and so many, so much money, right? The results weren't quite as encouraging. At that point in time in 2017, I'm not going to name the agency, but we spoke to the CEO of the agency, and he told us only 15%,
15%.
right, 15% of all SMEs in Singapore are consuming technology on a regular basis.
Yes.
Which means 85% are either not doing it, tried it but failed, right, or just, wow, this is just bar humbug, we don't need it, okay? So
It's such a hurdle to get over digital transformation.
It is.
85%.
85%, yeah.
Wow.
Even after all that money that we've spent, right? So it was a statistic that actually startled me. Okay, and so we wanted to say, okay, so why aren't they? So I told the government agency that and said, look, you guys have been throwing money at a problem, right? Hasn't worked very well. Okay, let me see whether we can come up with something a little bit different.
Yes.
But the good thing is, I don't know whether it's going to work or not. At least we're trying it a little bit differently, and let's see whether it yields slightly different results.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, go ahead. Do what you need to do. And that was when we got UOB to say, look, can you give us names of some of your guys, your clients, SME clients,
Yes.
right? That we can go interview.
Now tapping back into UOB's customer pool.
Correct, because I just couldn't walk into a meeting with an SME cold, right? And it would be good if a relationship has really been formed with, like, say for example, the RM,
Yes.
who can then help bridge this initial conversation to say, look, this is a FinLab, this is what they are looking to do, what do you think?
Absolutely.
So we started that process, right? I'm sorry, you're about to ask a question.
No. I was just going to put it into the context of my favorite topic.
Right.
Ambidextrous organizations.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Because organization ambidexterity, it's the right hand side of the organization taking care of current core customers, which is in your case UOB, and then do innovation as a separate entity, which is indeed FinLab. And the reason behind this that if you try to do innovation within the existing business, you just can't get the focus on that. So it's much more higher probability of success to do it separately. Nonetheless, right hand and left hand, it's the same body, and therefore you need to have organizational alignment.
Right.
And that alignment is a senior management leadership challenge, but senior leadership's facilitation, it will all flow through it. This is the whole idea about that. And the interesting thing about you is that this flow back started after, let's say, after a first iteration. 2016 first batch came in. 2017 you started seeing it becoming a red ocean. We're really thinking about who do we want to serve, what can we do best, and that was really the part that I would say it was a pivoting
in a way,
and you're tapping back into that. So I just find it that it's quite amazing, the innovation arm of UOB, the FinLab, really now tapping into the core competencies of United Overseas Banks. You're Asia's third largest bank, a very deep. You're known for serving SMEs very well. Let's see what you can do from an innovation perspective, and that was in 2017, right?
That was in 2017. That's when the idea was hatched.
Yeah.
And of course, looking back, obviously, the SME side of things form a very large part of the bank's business because we were founded as an SME bank more than 80 years ago. So it was a natural fit, right? And we're tapping into a customer base that they are relatively strong in. I believe in Singapore itself, they bank one out of every two SME, and of course, they are the only bank that has a regional footprint with their own brand, right? In Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and so on and so forth. So it's basically tapping into something that they are already inherently strong in. So we just basically got to give us some names of some customers, guys who would be a little bit open-minded, to listen to new things. So initially, we didn't really have our value proposition clear yet. I mean, we were just grasping around in the dark. So the first few meetings went terribly. Right? And you know, we continued to see how we could refine the pitch, because you know there was really no testing among ourselves before we went, you know, straight to the market, right?
Sure.
The whole thing was going to market early, so we really get to get a sense of what people thought. So our initial ones bombed. The first few interviews bombed really bad, because you know halfway through it's like, okay, so I really didn't see that coming. So you know, I was like, okay, just take it in, you know, get railroaded, run over, blah. It's okay. You know, it's a learning experience, right?
Learning experience.
Yeah, it's a learning experience. Obviously, you know, the RM was like. Yeah, but yeah, I remember one meeting which was really funny. Father and son, right? Father still holds the purse strings, son's taking over. Went there and pitched, you know, this particular idea about, you know, SME business acceleration at that point.
SME business acceleration,
right? To help them adopt technology. So the father, gosh, I remember he was so hostile, right? The whole time he like this, and then he's, this is not going to work. We tried this before, it's not going to work. It's not. The son was just quiet throughout and nodding. Yes, Dad, you know, that's correct. So that meeting was over in about half an hour. Okay? And the old man walked out and he said, okay, we're wrapping up. Then the son went, Felix, this is really interesting. You know, how can I be a part?
The dynamics, it's so different between the father and son.
And so one of the things that we learned very quickly in this, you know, generation thingy, right?
Yes.
Is that the son really doesn't have control in that sense, right? So while he may like it, the hurdle of getting the old man after he railroaded us, right, to agree to come to this is going to be very difficult.
Yes.
Right. So you know, some of the things that we learn along the way is because a lot of the second generation, they want to have to win their seat on the table, so they have to go prove themselves, and we've seen this many times. And that the second generation would say, look, Dad, you know, I have this really great idea.
Yeah.
Right? You know, I'd like to try that.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be the way of the future.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Dad, yeah, here's some money, go make something happen. And how many times do you think the old man is going to give you money and you keep, you know, just, you know, tossing it down the drain, right? So after a while, the guy's like, dude, no more. So therein lies. I think a lot of times, the young were either too eager, they were trying to jump on a bandwagon that was a little bit too early.
Yes.
I mean, of course, you know, you heard of, you know, crossing the chasm, right?
Yes, exactly.
Right? So, you know, you have your early adopters and then you have this valley of death, right? Many of them don't make it past that.
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing with tech companies. So the same with all this. So after, you know, interviewing, I believe we had like about 50 different SMEs that we...
You interviewed 50 different SMEs.
Yeah, 50 different SMEs. There was quite a lot of talking. And we started to see a few things, a few trends, common threads that were emerging from this.
Now you are seeing patterns.
Yeah.
Common threads.
Common threads that emerged, you know, from, by and large, you know, most of them, you know,
Yes.
not all, but most. So the first thing is always, yeah, we like to innovate, right?
Who wouldn't say that?
Yeah, sure. But we really don't know how. Okay? One of the things that we found out is that they actually do, right? They try.
They try.
The issue obviously is they don't have a proper framework
Yes.
that they do their innovation using
Yes.
that framework. So it was kind of like, you know, just a, you know, shot in the dark.
Yes.
You know, if something stuck, great. If nothing stuck, oh well, let's do it again. But the whole problem with that is this. When they succeed, and when we ask them, okay, are you able to hit repeat? The answer that came back is like, geez, we were lucky.
We were lucky.
Right? So if you were lucky, which means you just happen to hit it. This is like buying a lottery. You just happen to win some money, but can you repeat that? Not very likely. And worse yet, oh, we've tried this so many times, we failed. So it started to show that because it was more a haphazard way of doing things. So even if they did it right, they didn't know where they went right, which were the parts that they could do better, so that the right gets more right.
Yes.
And the things that they did wrong, they didn't know where they went wrong. So chances are, as they tried the next iteration, they will fall into that same trap, and they keep doing the same things. And invariably, if you failed the first time, the second time you do it, the chances of failing is just as high.
Absolutely. Where is the learning? That was the point, right?
So they could, because they didn't know where they failed, so how,
Yes.
where could they extract the information, the learnings from, right?
Yes.
So it's like, okay, so that is one area, cool, because when we did our fintech acceleration, one of the things that we did was that every tech company that came in, right, everybody is seriously short on resources, right? So, you really couldn't go to market without first knowing exactly, your value, first of all, your customer, right? You define it very, very clearly. And then, of course, the value proposition to that customer. So these were some of the things that, okay, these guys have been running a business, they have customers, and they tried to innovate, but somehow or other it didn't work. So there's something in there we felt, okay, maybe if we actually shared that structure with them, things would be good, okay? So that's the first bit.
Yeah.
The second bit that struck us was this. I'm not born digital, right? I'm not a technology company. How would I know, technology solution A is better than technology solution B, but actually technology solution C is the one that best suits me. So this reach into the tech world is something that we've been doing, right? When we are calling for applications, and we have tech applications all the time. So it's like, okay, so this is one area that we can definitely help in.
Yes.
Because most of the SME owners, how do they get to use technology is that they look at their friends who's running in the same industry and they've adopted something, right? So, dude, how's that working for you? Good? Cool.
Might be a great tool, but not for their particular purpose.
Maybe not.
Yeah,
right?
That you, in your case, day in, day out, you are looking at the whole tech universe in Singapore and beyond. You have a general idea of what are those categories of technology. And if you are talking to this SME client, you are already mapping what technology is going to be most applicable to them. Why don't you make that as a help for them?
Right.
That was what naturally came up as a second point.
Correct. So they want to innovate. They don't know how.
How?
Right? They couldn't get the right tech solutions because they really don't know that particular, industry very, very well. Right? And the last but not least, the last bit is always the part that got me thinking a little bit, and it's this part about them. Okay, I don't know how, I don't know where, right? So how can I get started?
How can I get started?
Right? So this is the part there where we say, okay, I think we definitely have, you can use the playbook that we have, for tech companies, adapt it a little bit, right? So that the SME owners will start to then say, okay, this makes sense. And the people that we want to have come into the program would be the business owners themselves.
Yes.
Because we wanted them to have that change in mindset, right? To understand some of the things we call the first part of it, going back to school. Right? So one whole month of workshops where we give you, the latest thinking in terms of, let's say, for example, using the business model canvas, design thinking, right? What's going on in terms of, data analytics and why it's important for you. So all the major topics that every business that needs to continue to be relevant will need to know.
Yes.
Okay. So we did all that, and of course, last but not least, we also told them, look, SMEs, we're not going to be introducing an SAP or an Oracle type, solution for you. It's way beyond, what you're willing to pay. So the tech solutions that we're looking for mostly have to be, number one, either cloud-based, easy to use, and of course, you have open APIs that you're able to then, if they have whatever system that they have already, you're able to talk to them. So one of the key things that we have found out is that, we've done this piece, but they don't talk, right? Because, vendor A will say, vendor, this particular solution is having this problem. And there are guys pointing. So at the end of the day, you're caught in the middle, right?
Yes, yes.
A pointing to B, B pointing back to A, and then okay, so and that's one of the major issues.
Yes, the problem about a collection of vendor products, usually there's not much integration in it. So that part is actually a development process or a journey for that particular application at the enterprise level of this.
Sure.
I understand.
Sure. So from there, we kind of okay, I think we have a rough idea of what is it going to be. Then we basically narrowed down the field to about 7 SMEs, and we came up with this very, very simple criteria, right? We want the owners to have 3 things. Number 1, we call it open. So open means you have to be open-minded. You have to be open to learn new things because for the first part of the program you're going back to school, and for many of these guys they haven't been back to school for a while.
Yes.
Right? And open-minded enough to say, look, I'm willing to try.
Open to try, yes.
You have to, because if you never try, you'll never know. Right? And that's the first bit. And of course also open to the fact that you may have somebody tell you, look, Felix, you're barking up the wrong tree. Maybe you should be rechanneling your resources to this particular thing. Because I know as a business owner myself, there is this thing called ego. Right? I know my business better than you do. So who are you to tell me? But sometimes, having a person who is number 1 experienced, in this case we actually brought in a retired management consultant as one of our mentors in residence. So he's able to do a very, very quick dipstick and say, look, your numbers are not looking terribly good. This seems to be creating a lot of stuff here, but you're focusing here. Why? Right? Those kinds of things there. Sometimes you just need somebody with an outside eye.
Absolutely.
To tell you the obvious.
And that's a recurring challenge with equally to startup entrepreneurs. I think it applies to SME entrepreneurs as well. Successful young leaders, they have a history of success. Therefore, they're very confident. Therefore, if they fixate, on a certain, thing they want to do, they have the conviction.
Of course.
And that conviction, combine that with the hot buzzword of grit. So it's like, I gotta stick with that. I gotta go with that because this is my mandate, my mission.
Right.
Now, the even stronger entrepreneurs are the ones that are able to have that self-check and say that, well, I'm not perfect. I might not know everything. I might be wrong. So admitting that vulnerability, and as you say, open to be challenged. That is a very important trait.
Right.
And I see that is a key feature that you wanted to make sure that is inside your program.
Right.
More like a culture, I would say.
The culture.
Yes.
The culture. So that's the first part. The second part, we call it able.
Able. Okay.
Yeah, able. Being able means you're able to commit time and resources, right? To first of all attend class, right? If your house is on fire and your phone has to be answered every few minutes, there's really no time for you to take a bird's eye view of what's happening and where your company is going. You're always in the trenches fighting.
Yes, it's mental investment to make sure that you are
right.
You are bringing out your attention to the learning.
Correct. So one of the things that I have learned running my own business is maybe I'm lazy, but I like to have the idea that I've built a strong enough team so I can be away, and they can take care of the issues without me being in it, right? And the longer I can be away without them calling me, the better it is.
Absolutely.
Right. So that is the kind, at least for me, if I'm being a lazy person, I like to do that because then I'll have more time to maybe dream about what's the next big thing, or look at mega trends and stuff like that, and see how we can then either pivot or move in a direction where the tide's rising, right? So might as well take advantage of that. So it comes back to this thing about being what I call a reactive stance as compared to a active stance. The reactive stance, I've seen this in businesses, right? Business owners, money's coming in, business is coming in. I'm sitting back in my chair, leaning back, I'm relaxed, right? No worries, everything's going well. And then when something hits, that's when I go like that.
Yes.
And right now, I guess, given the way, the speed of things that are changing, your ability to react and react well when things happen is going to be a lot more limited because, you know, things are happening so quickly on so many fronts. You won't be able to then react quickly enough to some of the things that come and hit you. So we have always advocated that business owners have what we call a controlling stance, i.e. I'm always sitting and looking forward. So what's coming over the horizon, right? Is it something that I can perhaps take advantage of so that my business becomes stronger, or is it something that's really gonna, throw a, I guess, a curveball from the left field? And if I know that that's coming, then how do I then ring fence? Right?
So it's the concept of being in command of your destiny.
Correct.
Yes.
And you're always in the know, and you're always curious.
Yes.
Right? So that's very, very important.
Absolutely. You earlier mentioned that you had a lazy style of management. I would respectfully disagree. What it is a result that you get to be lazy, because the most important part was that you were applying a delegating style of management, and delegation doesn't happen with trusting. So you trust your people.
Of
you
course.
let them self-organize, and that opens up your space to look into future proofing your enterprise. Yeah. So all of this goes back into the core concept of learning. It's learning organizations and people who have this proactive stance of really thinking about, almost like scenario planning. I would say, systemically thinking about, okay, what if that could be interesting. Let's explore, so on and so forth. And if you have that wealth of, that mental, thinking pattern of thinking of possibilities. When something does happen and you do have to lean in, that's when you have so much more strength and abilities to be able to do that.
Right.
I think that is the point that you're trying to.
Yeah, and on top of that, obviously, I'm not taking credit, for being the one doing all the thinking. You also learn from people that you have conversations with.
Yes.
All right, and the more you're able to do that, right, then you take in different views. You may not agree with some, but hey, it's a different perspective.
Yes.
Right? So you take that all in and then you say, okay, I'm just going to park it at the back of my mind.
Yes.
Maybe one day this is going to become useful. I don't know. But, at heart, I've always been a BD person. So I like meeting people. I like sharing stuff, right? And at the same time, I learn when the other party shares as well. So it's always a good two-way process, right?
Yes.
In that sense. So yes, we want the owners to be able, right? I said that's the second bit, right?
Second bit, able.
Yeah,
Yes.
able. So I need to have resources because if I'm going to undertake a transformation journey for my business, I need to commit time and resources.
Yes.
Right? Nothing's going to happen overnight. One of the things I think, a lot of us are, at least the media is obsessed with is that, okay, so what's the result? Right? And my answer to that said, dude, even if you plant something, it'll take time for that thing to grow, right? And it's not going to happen overnight. And the same thing happens with a business. So that's open and able. The last bit, which to me is the key, is willing.
Willing.
Right. So this is your business, right? It's not mine, right? You must be willing to say, look, I really want this. I really want to make this happen. I really want the transformation to happen to my business. I really want this. It cannot be something that's forced from the outside. And strangely enough, my staff tells me that when I said this particular, they said, Felix, where do you get this from? This is really original. I said, but I thought I read it somewhere. So this is it. The willing bit has to come from motivation. Okay, and that motivation has to come from within and not without.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
intrinsic motivation, inside out.
Inside out.
Yes.
So the simple analogy that I give, I say, look, an egg, right? If the egg cracks from the inside, you get life.
Yeah.
Right? If you crack the egg from the outside, you get omelet. Okay. So they said, wow, this is really. I said, look, I think I read it somewhere. I can't really attribute that to myself. So the willing bit to me is very, very key. Because without that, you can only take things this far, and then after that you get distracted or you lose interest.
Yes.
Okay, so open, able, willing. These are the three key things that we look for in the owners themselves.
I see.
Right.
I see.
So without that, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Of course, at that point in time, our first batch, we did tell them, you guys are the guinea pigs, right? We're good doing something for the first time. We don't know what we don't know. Right? We're getting you in. Thank you very much for volunteering, right? To be part of this. It is an ongoing experiment. We'll do some things right. We'll do some other things not so right. We want your feedback, right? So that we can improve.
Very nice. Yeah. So it's a partnership.
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be. And we can't claim that we already know what we're doing because we really don't.
Yes, yeah. And if you claim to sort of already know, then you're going to have the teaching attitude, which in that case, going back to your motivation part, it's outside-in education, not really helping them do the inside-out learning themselves. So starting with that, sharing that this is also a learning journey for yourself, really is the right attitude to pull out, the great things from your first batch of us as SME founders. Yes.
Right. So we got in 7, and then we launched that, I guess in as simple a way as we can. And the tourism board heard that, oh, you're running this Singapore Tourism Board.
Singapore Tourism Board.
Yeah. And they came and said, look, we're doing pretty much the same thing, right? But we would like to have, you select, a few of our travel agencies, because the travel agencies are the ones that are facing quite a lot of challenges, from the what we call the OTAs, the online travel agencies. That's really disrupting their business. People don't go to the travel agencies as much. Everything is done, by myself online, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of these things are happening. They're seeing their business fall and stuff like that. So STB went, do you think you'll be able to, maybe pick a few of them? Right? Just come present, right? Those who are key, who are willing to give it a shot, you can go interview them, and if you find them suitable, take them into the program. So, we managed to find 4. So all in all, my first program, we had 11 companies in there. So from these 4, there's 11, we learned quite a few things. So after we finished the program, we found a few key learning lessons. Is that number 1, it took a while for us to understand what their problems were. We were taking them in because we wanted them to be open, able, and willing. They had that, right? And then we spent quite a lot of time working with them to try to understand, so what really is your pain point, right? Before we could identify the tech solutions that we could, then look to adopt. So during that process, we had what we call 2 mentors in residence. One I mentioned earlier, a retired, management consultant. We call that the strategic fella. So he's able to look at the big picture, draw up those nice little charts that consultants do, to show you where you are and where you should be going.
Yeah.
Right. So strategic part is great. Then I brought in, another mentor in residence, whom I call the tactical.
Okay.
Fella. So I'm running into this problem. How do I solve it? And this guy has got a wealth of experience doing that, and he's served second gen companies before, and he has fought battles with the second generation, with the first.
Got it.
Right?
Got it.
So he knows how to then say, okay, this is how you soften the ground, this is how you do it, and stuff like that. So tactical. So while I have the strategic intent of this is where I'm going to go,
somebody that has the tactical person, somebody that understands the organization dynamics of being a second generation family-owned business.
Correct, and how you then navigate, who are the people you should be looking to buy in and stuff like that. So it's important you get ownership from the people that you want to also move along with you, right? And how do you buy that? How do you get them involved, right? When they were first a critic, how do you then get them to be a supporter?
Fantastic.
Right. So all these kinds of things are the tactical side.
Yes.
Right. Which of course on the strategic front, yes, you need to hit that direction, but on the ground you may have to, do things a little bit differently, but you're always keeping in mind, this is my objective.
Absolutely. So the strategic part might be, sort of beautifully planned, but the tactical part can be a random walk in the...
Yeah, exactly. And you never know what's going to come up, and then you just have to deal with it at that point in time. And you need to have somebody who's a sounding board to tell you, look, I think you should be trying this.
Absolutely. So you made sure that these two core resources are available.
Yes.
For them.
Yeah, and they're both my friends. So
coaches, trainers, facilitators, and mentors like us. Our role is not to solve the problem of our mentees. Our role is to what we call KSA transfer: knowledge, skill, ability, and on top of that, I call it attitude and aptitude.
Mm-hmm.
Transferring all of these things so that we are enabling function for our mentees to be able to do that.
Correct.
And understanding, your challenges of your cohort of these 7 SMEs, you found 2 people who were each strategic and tactical in nature of the mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
Yeah, so that worked out pretty well. Quite happy with that. And like I mentioned earlier, some of the things that we've, upon review after the program was over, and said, okay, we spent really a lot of time doing this particular bit. Are we able to do this even before we bring them into the program, right? And of course, those will be identifying where the pain points are, and really getting them to say that, look, of all the 1,001 things that I really am supposed to be, looking to solve, what are the 1 or 2 that to me is, if I fix this, maybe a good bunch of the other stuff will just go away. Right? So you need to be also, very, very cognizant of the fact that you cannot be, okay, I know the younger generation will disagree with me, but the younger generation all seem to think that we can multitask. Okay? But I think, as the way I have, learned doing things, is that you can only do one thing at a time. All right, and that's the same message that we are giving the SMEs. Don't try to kill yourselves trying to do so many things. Right? Pick one. Prioritize. Pick one. Do that well. And then, if that helps to solve a good part of the thing, okay, cool. Then you look at the next big thing that you need to resolve. Try not to do too many things.
Absolutely.
All at one time.
Absolutely. And then it really goes back into the very exploratory and iterative, way of your doing. Smart people tend to be able to sort of quantify and contextualize all of the things and make a beautiful list of things that they do. And then but the problem is the next step. Typically what will happen is there is sort of like a mechanistical or a cascaded approach of tackling these tasks one by one, like it's going to be solved in simple ways. Usually it's not the case. In marketing we always say that don't really believe in what your customer says on the surface. Usually the real needs and wants are something really under there. So through this many messages, you really need to find a way to let them tap into what is the core thing that is troubling them, and that is the 1 to 2 things. And if we fix that, there's so much leverage, and everything will sort of flow through. I think you have so many experience in that, so that's your wise message to the younger.
Well, it's interesting that you said that. It just reminded me of an incident when I was still running my internet company back then, and this was dealing with a government agency, and I have a very good working relationship with the lady who was the head of, I think, the corp comms or something like that. And I've been hearing a lot of complaints after we started working with them, just like a little bit here, a little bit there. So one day I just decided to give her a call and say, look, I understand that there has been a fair bit of unhappiness about certain things. Can I come in, right, and just hear you out? So I went in there, 3 hours, non-stop, right? Bomb. So I took it in. I didn't respond. I just okay, good. Just give me more. At the end of the 3-hour session, this is what shocked me. So I said, okay, good. I hear you. Right? It's been a very, very good download. Didn't know there were so many things, that didn't go right. I'm sorry. what would you like for me to do?
Mm-hmm.
And her answer totally shocked me. She said, Felix, nothing. I just needed to get it off my chest. Okay. Yeah. So imagine when I went back and everybody, gosh, you've gone 3 hours. What happened? I said, oh man, she really gave it to me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so yeah, it's okay. What? So yeah, absolutely right. Sometimes we found that out too, in that we need to ask them, right? They may be complaining about a lot of things, and we need to ask them. So what is it that you really want us to do? And sometimes what they want us to do is actually a lot more simple than what we think they want us to do.
Absolutely.
Right? So instead of preempting, sometimes it's always easier to just ask.
Exactly. I mean, take the example of your friend that did the 3-hour download. At the end of the 3 hours, after she spoke it out, she probably had that mental map of thinking that, well, these are all things that I actually think I can address, but I just needed to externalize it and then give her the chance there. If after doing that, and there are a couple of things that she felt that she couldn't really address it, then she will be asking. I think that happens with pretty much, it happens a lot in my coaching conversations too. Again, as a coach, I never solve my coachees' problems. It's, I'm just, more, I help to them to clarify what their challenges are, and then aid them to build their strategies, their action plans to that. Usually it boils down to many things, and it's like checklist exercise. Well, we talked about this challenge, but actually I can do it like this. And you filter it out. So there are only a small number of things that you have to develop new ways of doing things, and that becomes a focus point. That becomes amazing leverage.
Right, absolutely. So that bit there worked out pretty well, for the first lot of SMEs.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so we got a lot of learning experiences from there. They gave us feedback on certain things, and like I said, the first part was just taking us too long to uncover what the pain points are before we could identify what tech solutions they can serve. But because it was a 3-month program, right? 1 month was spent in classes. Another month was spent, okay, so what exactly is that pain point that you're looking to resolve, that we can actually have a tech solution that can help, and then they actually implemented. So by the time Showcase Day came around, they really didn't have very many results to show, because they just started, right? And this is one thing that, I kind of also try to make sure that the press understands. Oh, it's a 3-month program, so we should be seeing an increase in sales by X%, or an increase in productivity. Look, guys,
it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way, right? Because the entire transformation process will take time, and this is just the start, all right? And for them to take this little thing to say that, look, I've done it well, let's see what comes out of that, and if I have already a clearly defined, success factor, and it hit those success factors, then it gives me the motivation, right? And the excuse to say, look, I need to now take the next step, right? Because I can't just stop here. So this is the part of the education bit on the press that that we really needed to do. So that I think went down okay.
Okay,
yeah,
that's very good.
So from the learning experiences, we kind of then come up with this thing called the business model transformation workshop.
Okay.
So this was the thing that hampered us during the first batch. And when we went into, take a step back, how did we end up in Thailand and Malaysia? All right. So when we first launched it in Singapore, we also knew that Enterprise Singapore, before it was Enterprise Singapore, they have this thing called the Global Innovation Alliance. They're looking at the GIA, Global Innovation Alliance. So they've identified 4 countries that they would want to start their initial offices in. Obviously USA is one of them. Then they have China, and the other 2 in ASEAN were Indonesia and Thailand. So at that point in time, I think this was back in late 2017, I was up in Bangkok for one of their tech conferences, and I was introduced to one of the government agencies. This guy, relatively young chap, Stanford graduate, young, lots of ideas of how he wants to do things differently. So we had a connection. So I kind of like told him, look, I'm looking to actually do this particular program. And he told me, look, this is exactly what Thailand needs. Are you able to come here and run this program?
Wonderful.
All right, so okay, fine, good. Let's see how we can get this done. I don't have that many resources. And ESG told me, look, we're going to launch our office in Bangkok in April in 2018, right? Would you like to ride on the bandwagon? No cost to you because the media will be there, because we've got a senior minister of state who's going to be there. The media's definitely fantastic.
The stars are aligned.
Fantastic, right? So, I told the government agency guy, look, you don't need to spend a cent. We just need to get a press release crafted out, an MOU crafted out, and we do it all there, announce it all there. So that's what we did. So in April of 2018, a good, almost a year before we actually started running the program in Thailand, we signed the MOU to say that we're looking to bring the program there.
Nice.
All right, and after that, we had Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, AMDEC, right? The lady at that point in time, who was in charge is Dato Yasmin. She also came down and said, look, we heard about this thing. Do you want, when can you bring it into Malaysia, right? So obviously the thing is, if it's all going to be happening in 2019, I don't have a transmogrifier. If you are a fan of Kelvin and Hobbes, right? So it's going to be impossible, right? And because the GIA office was in Bangkok, we figured, okay, we're going to launch Bangkok first. And if that pretty much goes well, we can always replicate in Malaysia. So that was the genesis of how we ended up bringing the program overseas. And of course, UOB they have very, very strong regional presence both in Thailand and in Malaysia. It makes sense, right? In Thailand, I think they just celebrated their 20th anniversary. In Malaysia, the franchise is more than 60 years, right? So it makes good sense for them, for these two countries to be, in the forefront as we regionalize our program. So that was that, okay? And back to the part about, the learnings. So the learnings meant we wanted to do what we call the business model transformation workshop ahead. So as we ran our events, we told the people, look, come to our register, come to the business model transformation workshop, free of charge, right? We're going to put you through certain things. It's going to be 2 days of your time. It's going to be worth your time and effort. From there, we put them through 1 day of BMC, Business Model Canvas. Surprisingly, 99% of them have not done or heard of the BMC. Of those who have, they probably did it in school, but they never really applied it to their business. So that's the first part. And I focus more on the right side of the BMC because they're always talking about, look, you need to sharpen your value proposition. You need to know exactly who your clients are and what they want, right? And the analogy that I gave them was, the mobile phone of the on the value proposition. Is your value proposition a watch, or is your value proposition a mobile phone? To drive the point home. So I said, look, how many of you own watches? A good bunch of them do. Now, if you have, imagine you've just left house and you know that you just have enough time to reach your client's place for this particular meeting, and you realize, oh darn, I forgot to wear my watch. How many of you will actually go back to grab that watch before you go, right? And invariably, practically nobody would do that. I say, okay, now flip it aside, flip it over, and now you left your mobile phone at home. Would you go back to get it? And almost everybody said yes. So the point I was trying to drive is this: is your value proposition a watch or a mobile phone to your customer? Because if it's a watch, I can live without it, no problem. I can always find a replacement because I can always, okay, what's the time, right? But if it's a mobile phone, I have to have it because all my contacts are there, everything is there, my life is there. Without that, I am handicapped. So is your value proposition a mobile phone or a watch to your customer? If it is a mobile phone, good for you. If it's a watch, then how do you then make sure they can make it into a mobile phone? Those kinds of things.
That's a beautiful analogy. Powerful.
Right. So it helps to drive the point home. I think that's key to every workshop that I give. At least I'm trying to bring some stories to make the concept easier to internalize.
Yes.
Right. Something that's easy to understand. Okay, I got it.
Yes.
Right. So after we've run the business model canvas,
So you planted the seed of thinking differently. You activated them. They're thinking like, what is the value I can provide? And really made them think about that in this 2-day workshop.
yeah,
And that's a start.
that's a start.
Yeah.
So from there, a lot more times than not, they'll have more questions,
Of course.
right, than they have answers. But what we wanted them to understand is that, look, whatever that you see, right, as a challenge right now, whatever that you see that, this is something that I can potentially do better, these are all opportunities that you can perhaps find technology to leverage on, right? You don't have to really solve everything on your own, right? Technology may already be there for you to use, you just don't know that yet. And one of the things that we found out running the program is a lot of them actually come back to tell us, Felix, I never would have known this piece of technology existed if not for the Finlab, right? Because like I said, they weren't born digital, they don't have the reach into the tech world
Yes,
that we do,
yes.
right? So this bit, first day BMC, from the BMC, we can almost get them to say that, look, I think I need to focus on this. This is where my pain point is. So I've already drawn out the pain point from the first session,
Okay.
right? The second session is basically design thinking, right? To say that, look, taking what you want to do here, this is your pain point. Now, how do you then have a framework, right, for you to then iterate, to understand before you solutionize from a technology point of view,
Yes.
right? So I told them, don't think about technology. Technology is just an enabler. Think about how you can resolve this, and then once you know how you're going to do it, then look for the technology solution, not the other way around.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So this change in doing the 2-day workshop actually helped us a lot. Then we're able to identify, okay, this particular pain point that this guy is looking to address, we're able to help because we already know that the technology solution is there for them,
Yes.
right? This particular thing, maybe not.
Yes.
And then after we went to interview the owners, of course the open able willing bit came in, but we already know what their pain points are, we already know how we can help them.
Wonderful.
So that kind of like shortened the process so that when we actually bring them in, right? So the whole idea is no longer, okay, so what's your pain point? We already know what that is.
Yes.
Put you through the classes, bring in the tech solutions, start implementing.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's wonderful. The reasons why we so I'm a trainer and a facilitator on top of being a coach.
Right.
And particularly I call it process coaching. Design thinking, lean startup, Agile Scrum, even things like good old PDCA, things like OODA. All of these are experimental and iterative routines. And the contrast is against the very linear, rigid waterfall, way of doing things. I'm not saying waterfall is a bad thing. As a matter of fact, I always say that there is a place for waterfall. But the thing is that anything that is sort of a complex challenge, that there are so many variables, you can't do it in the waterfall way of doing it. But then, once you start doing trial and error, there are many ways of doing that. But just from my experience, we tend to go all over the place. Eventually, we will get there, and that spirit is very important. And I encourage people to go that random way of doing it. At first, because there's so much learning from it. Then there is so much appreciation from many of these frameworks and approaches that we have. Business model canvas, value proposition canvas. All of these things are very helpful in bringing all of that into a limited space of an A4 paper, and sort of having a visual representation of what where things are. So this is one facilitation technique there. The whole idea of design thinking, empathizing, defining the problem, ideating, building the prototype, and then testing. And this actually is not a linear process. You can go all over the place. After you've first thought that I think this is my pain point. Then you can immediately see what kind of technology that I'll use. That will feed back into your thinking that, well, then this part is very easily solvable. What again is my problem there? So it can be very all over the place. But now you have a framework that is more compact and is doable and easier to iterate. That's the beauty of tapping into all of these what we call scientific ways of trial and error.
Right.
And you've been really condensing this in the Finlab way.
Well, yeah, I think it's also a kind of like a roundabout way we went about doing it as well. I guess from a personal standpoint, right? I've always been conceptual first, analytical next, and I'm very big on the social piece, right? Being a BD person and stuff like that. But the part of me that really didn't like doing part is the structural bit, right? So I do have problems communicating with people who are very structural in nature. So having a framework like that, and even though things are messy, you're able to then cater to the different thinking types, right? Who are, okay, so yes, it is messy, but I do have a structure.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
and it's not like all over the place.
Yes, messy trial and error does have structure too.
Yes, exactly. So it kind of like worked pretty well, and we're able to then address the different types of people who take information in very differently.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So for me, like I said, I'm largely conceptual, right? And I have major problems talking to people who are very structural. But with these kinds of things, it makes life a little bit easier.
Absolutely.
So you asked me earlier. So what's right hand, left hand, right? All this has to be aligned with the organizational goals. So what's in it, for UOB at the end of the day. Well, first of all, a lot of the clients who want to, a lot of people who actually want to come into the program, when they want to understand what the program can do for them so that they can be more relevant, right, in the current day and age insofar as their business is going. They may not necessarily want a banking conversation. So this is a product that you can use. So the FinLabs program then becomes a very nice wrapper. Yeah, around the whole thing, right?
Yes.
Now, if you become a UOB customer, we can avail this program to you. And these are the kinds of things we're looking to build. And yes, sooner or later, you will need banking products and services. Every business does, right? It's just about who's giving a better rate in terms of taking a loan, who's able to give me a better service, right? Because at the end of the day, businesses do follow their relationship managers. It's all a relationship thing. Relationship manager may be moving to another bank, right? Sooner or later, I'll follow because I like the guy, right? And I don't like the new guy you assigned to me after he's left, right? So it's all about business relationship. And I think this is a very nice wrapper to say that, look, when you come to become a client of UOB, right, some of these things, if relevant to you, you are able to then participate in workshops and stuff like that. We're happy to open that up to you. So it becomes a very nice conversation piece to say that, look, we're different from the other guys because we have the FinLab, right? You guys can only talk about, products, but on top of that, we have the service. So the underlying intent has always been, when we started this whole smart business transformation thing, is with this particular BHAG, and I think this is one of the reasons why it resonated with quite a lot of the different governments across the region, right? Even going as far as Vietnam and Indonesia. They all want us to take the program there, but the unfortunate bit is that there's only so few of us, right, to do this. Is that this practically every ASEAN economy, right? A large part of it is actually the GDP is contributed by the SMEs themselves.
Absolutely.
A huge part of their GDP.
Absolutely.
Right? They employ a good chunk of the available workforce. And all the governments have been talking about, look, how can we get these guys, to adopt digital technologies? This whole industry 4.0 transformation thingy, right? While everybody can see the benefits, so the way I have articulated to them is this, look, if you're able to find a few of these good companies, and we put them through the program, and they start, the transformation process, and they've been successful. Are you able to then help me put them on the pedestal, right? So that you give them the PR, you give them the exposure, so that other SMEs can look up to them and say, "Wow, they've done it. We want to."
Yes.
Okay. So let them be the inspiration. So once we're able to start the ball rolling, and as a friend of mine always says, "Look, Felix, the hardest part about pushing a boulder is the starting part.
Yes, absolutely.
But the moment you get the momentum going, then it becomes easier."
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So what we're doing right now is that we're doing all the heavy lifting, right? We're doing all this extremely high touch because we want to make sure that these SMEs who have come through the program do actually see good results coming out from that. They have to be able to see that, oh, this thing actually works. I want to really continue this. Then the rest hopefully will start to follow.
That's wonderful.
Right?
That's
And
wonderful.
once these guys, so the BHAG, Big Hairy Audacious goal, is that once SMEs start to adopt technology that help them to become more productive, that helps them to maybe even open up new markets so that they grow in revenues. So when you do that, right, when the SMEs become stronger and they start to expand, chances are they'll look to employ more people, right? And when more people are employed, there's more disposable income within the economy.
Wonderful.
More disposable income means greater multiplier effect. Greater multiplier effect means the economy gets a little bit stronger, and you'll be able to then weather the economic up and downs a lot better. Because every single time when a big event hits, like right now, right, the COVID virus thing, right, a lot of the SMEs will be going like, "Oops, the business is bad. What do I do first? Cut costs."
Totally hear you. Totally hear you.
Right, so you're fired.
Yes, yes.
Right.
There's a lot of mean reversion, that can easily happen because organizations are systems, and old ways of doing things are hard to die.
That's correct. So this is the one bit that we are looking to address, and of course when the companies become stronger, their balance sheets look a lot better. Guess what? Banks will be more happy to lend them money because the risk.
Yeah, it's a virtuous cycle.
Yes, that's exactly what we're looking to do. So I think everybody is able to buy into that vision. It's just now, okay, how do we get this going?
That's really good, and I way that you brought to this, your final, big, hairy, audacious goal on how do we make this, replicating and multiply. That's really the next challenge of a successful ambidextrous organization. What we saw was that you came in as a left-hand organization, and within a short time frame, only 3 to 4 years, the right hand and left hand is now being very balanced, and the right hand is really now integrating your work into the conversations with the clients, because like it started with the relationships, with the RMs. It's a very, very relationship-driven business, and now you're part of that story. So at this point, I think you can safely say from the UOB SME customer's perspective, UOB is not a watch but a phone. It's a partner that you need. So on that analogy. Now the next challenge is that innovation tends to not sustain nor permeate. So there are a lot of cases of very successful, organizational change, transformation, innovation programs in organizations. But 1 season later, 2 seasons later, people forget it and they mean revert to the old ways of doing things. It's the sad history of organizations.
Right.
Now what you want to address is that now the left hand has successfully activated the right hand. You have to go forward and see what's the next innovation, and that I see is already your mission.
That is still a long way to go, I think, but we're running as fast as our little legs can carry us, and once it takes off, right, and we really, really want to make it happen, is that then we will truly be able to get SMEs to adopt technologies and really scale in a fashion that we never had before. Because as a program, right, it's high touch, low impact. Okay, if you take a look at the axis, right, this is touch, this is impact. As a program, high touch, low impact, we're right here. We want to move to the high touch, low touch, high impact.
You want to get the leverage and
And move there. So that's where we want to move towards. We have no idea how we're going to get there yet. We're finding our way as we go along. Lots of conversations, lots of arguments along the way. But hey, that's all part of the
one conversation at a time.
Yeah, one conversation at a time. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we'll get there, one way or the other, or die trying.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your wonderful story at Finlab.
Thank you.
I wish Finlab and the UOB for the continued journey of success and innovation.
Thank you.
And I look forward to hear more of it, perhaps in the future iteration of this video.
Fantastic.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Felix.
Thank you.
Bye.